that's okay. We okay here? We're okay here. Modern technology, I'm not terribly familiar with. How long have we been living with it? Welcome to Sweet and Sour, everyone. Terrific lineup for you tonight. Bid from Esperance. We've got Suzie from, where is Suzie coming to us from? I know she must be in Perth because she can't fly around yet. We're still in relative border security. Dr. Kath is with us. And first timer on the show, Benjamin Norris. Benny joins us all the way from not so locked down Melbourne. For the first time, Benny was winner of Big Brother in 2012 and he's gone on to stellar media career since then. Be good to have him. The issues tonight. Will it happen in Australia? The rise of Trumpism. Ismology. What is that about? Why can't we just be people relating to, we'll get into that a bit later. Second letter tonight, taxpayer. The taxpayer being ripped off by, you and me being ripped off by the neighbour who's got two families on the go supported by you and me. Is that really happening? I don't know. But the letter writer from, where is he? From Sydney, I think. He seems to think it's happening. How would he know? Is he living in their lounge room? And the final letter to know, is this the new normal? Is the state of the economy at a very low point? Is this how we'll be travelling for the next 10, 15 years? Is this like the Great Depression not recovering until the 50s and we had to go through a war to get there and then new technology came about? Are we going to live at that economic level that we're experiencing now? Asks letter writer 3 and we'll see what the panellists have got to say. Don't go away. First Baby. Don't blame me. That's the song. First Baby. It's time for Sweet and Sour. See you in a minute. Here we come.
Got a problem, big or small, would a miracle be nice? Our motley crew is back, churning out advice. You might even laugh a bit in the following half hour. Park your backside on the couch, cause baby it's time for Sweet and Sour. Right here on Sweet and Sour.
Pour some sugar on there, baby.
It's time for Sweet and Sour.
How's about some chili?
It's time for Sweet and Sour.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sweet and Sour. Gary Mitchell with you for the next chat-filled half an hour. Who's joining us tonight? You can see them already. New participant tonight, all the way from semi-lockdown in Melbourne. Hello, Benny.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me. This is so exciting. Everyone looks so fresh. I don't know what I've signed myself up for. I don't know if I'm sweet or sour at this point, but I know that I could be a little bit of both, and I'll just wait for you and the audience to decide.
Terrific to have you, mate. Looking fresh.
You're already sweet.
How lovely. Goodness me. Dr. Kath, how are you?
I'm absolutely wonderful. I'm coming off such a high of a weekend. We did an event this weekend and we raised $5,000 for a very important charity. We raised $2,000 more than we expected, and it was just, I'm still in a high from it.
You're allowed to mention the charity, Doc.
The charity's name is Metal, and essentially what they do is they help to equip and empower women who have been affected by domestic violence to reestablish them back into the workforce. And they're just an incredible charity, and I highly, highly, highly suggest that the audience go and sees them. And especially with Christmas coming up, they do gift boxes. So you're really, by giving a gift, you're really giving the gift of opportunity to others. So have a look at their website, metal.com.au, I believe.
Haven't we got some sensational participants on this show? Congratulations for raising that money, and fantastic with your commitment to Metal.
Thank you.
MEDAL?
METTLE, Metal.
Metal. Well done. Bid, how are you, sir?
I'm wonderfully well, thank you very much.
Testing your metal up in Esperance.
Rescue dog. Testing my metal, yes.
Sorry, I cut you off. What were you talking about? Rescue dog?
Oh, I'm just saying, living in paradise and walking the rescue dog. That's that's what passes for fun in your old age. So there you go.
Thank you for joining us tonight, sir. Suzie Hunt.
Pleasure.
Have you been doing any more of your architecture shows while we've been in relative lockdown around Australia? How's that been travelling?
I did I did one on hotels by design, and I'm supposed to be doing innovation at the moment, but I'm a bit busy with work, so it's been a bit crazy. I'm actually too old to be working this many hours at the moment.
I don't think so.
Never too old.
I want to be doing what Ed's doing. I want to be walking my rescue dog, or any dog. I've got 3 dogs.
I'm going volunteering for metal. What are you doing, Ben? What are we doing for the rest of the world? We're solving all its problems to start with. Here we go. Letter number 1. Are you ready? Everybody seated and listening. Dear panelists.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. My son, who is now 20, is, I'm sure, just like every other person his age, influenced by the dominant culture that pervades the space, being the airwaves, social media, and the educational institution. Sometimes he wears his jeans under his bum. My dad used to call those bum catchers. Benny, do we still wear jeans like that?
I certainly don't. I don't. I'm gonna save the world with that one and give it a miss.
Okay, that's fair. Thank goodness this is disappearing, but as someone who recalls fondly sitting with schoolmates on the school bus, singing our national anthem to the tune of the Gilligan's Island theme, I think we all did that. Goodness me. Oh, Ben's too young for that, but I reckon
I don't know how young you think I am. I'm 40, so like everyone looks so much younger than me on this podcast. So I'm like, how old do you think I am?
Hang on. Did you sing Gilligan's Island on the bus for school?
Actually, I'm going to say no. So I'm not 60.
Okay.
I'm 40.
How are you 40? Tell us your secrets.
No.
Drink lots of water and sleep through your life is a good one. I also won a reality TV show, which they gave me $250,000, which meant that I didn't have a real job for a period of time. That also, I think, saved me a couple of years on the face.
All right.
There we go.
I'm enrolling for Big Brother,
I
isn't
hope
it?
I look that good when I'm 40. I really do.
Marty. Okay. Thank goodness this is disappearing. That's the jeans under the bum bit. But as someone who recalls fondly sitting there singing Gilligan's Island, I'm now hyper aware that our unique Australian way of life has been eroded since the USA began to dominate the world post-World War II. Many of our media outlets are now owned by foreign interests, and so I look at my son and worry. This last political experiment in America, which has really drawn out the divisions already manifested in the USA, has frightened me about the future of our kids. Our own Indigenous cultures take a distant last place in the minds of our commercially driven young people, and I don't want to see any more abandonment of our Australianness for an embrace of something like Trumpism. What do the panellists believe we ought to be doing as a community to both grow the celebration and embrace of our own community and protect against the decay being experienced in our dominant cultural influence? The USA, writes Matilda from Maroubra in New South Wales. We're going to go to Suzie first up on that one. Ah, yes, thought you had an easy ride. Come on, you open the show tonight, Suze.
Okay. Well, look, I'm really interested in this. I've actually just spent the last 6 weeks doing a design competition where we've really investigated the Aboriginal culture of a particular place in Western Australia, which we won't mention. And you know, I have been involved with that place for a very long time, and I did not have a clue of the actual history to the depth that we've had to investigate it for this design competition. So the first thing is, I would say about Aboriginal cultures is, and in Western Australia is Aboriginal, not so much Indigenous, is to get out there and scratch the surface, go to some talks and find out, because it has absolutely empowered me with the knowledge that I know. It is quite remarkable, more than I thought. I always thought it was that, but I didn't realise to the extent that I would be so overwhelmed with excitement on what we're going to be doing. The second thing is, I would say that this election, surprisingly in my family, and we have 5 kids live here, 5 adults, young adults, and my youngest son, or the youngest of the combined blended family, is 18, pays no attention to politics at all. I don't even know if he's actually enrolled to a vote.
However,
I came home from work the other day, and there he was sitting in front of the BBC, watching, ringing me at work, and before that, ringing me at work, Mum, now Trump is going to, if he wins Georgia, he could actually win, but I really think Biden, and the whole family has been totally engaged in this election. Now, the good thing, I'm trying to get good things out of there, is that young people in my office, children in my office, the parents are in my office, they're all going, they're ringing their parents going, tell the election's this. So they've really got engaged in the election process, in what it means, and also realising and appreciating that we're very lucky here in Australia and wanting to now be involved in politics. So, I am 56, I'm about the same age as Gary, and I didn't sing the Australian anthem with Gilligan's Island, but I do know Gilligan's Island. But I think there's some really good things, because I loved, anyway.
I love that you went and indulged in some Aboriginal culture. That's fantastic, because to me, I can't wait for I'll never see it, but all of us who make a commitment to living in this land, if we go on to have future generations, we'll all have generations in the future who have Aboriginality in their genes. So I don't know why we don't embrace it now and say, I'm an Aborigine, I'm Indigenous.
Gary, I would say one thing, that I'm going to send you some of the information, but it is actually quite amazing. We have an elder, a woman who's on our design team, informing us and advising us and telling us when we're inappropriate, and I've just learned so much. And I just wish that what we're learning now is going out to schools and really, you can ask questions. Ask questions and say, is that the right thing to do? Is that the right thing to say? And then everyone's willing to give you the information. So I'm really lucky.
Benny, I'm coming to you next, sir. Are we in danger of producing something like Trumpism here in this country, or are we too well grounded for anything like that?
Yeah, look, I don't necessarily know whether this lady should be too worried. And that is because when you're younger, we think back to what it is that we liked. I watched Melrose Place and 90210, and that's not indicative of the person that I am today. But my parents really always spoke to us like adults. They never spoke to us like children. I had a really, really lucky and fortunate relationship with my grandparents, who only ever watched the ABC. So I got to see lots of different content, and I got to be spoken to like an adult. And I don't know if the viewers can see this, but if you're looking at behind my house, people say that it looks like old people live here, even though I'm only 40. But my grandparents actually left me a lot of their furniture and a lot of their things. So what I'm trying to say is, we grow out of those sorts of things. We grow out of that stuff that she's worried about, and just keep talking to your children like they're little adults and they're little sponges. And they too could end up living in a house like mine for old people.
I must say, Ben, you and Dr. Kath win the prize for best backdrop tonight on the panel.
I didn't realize there was a competition, but I rang today to be worried about what my backdrop looked like, so I've overcommitted.
You should have worn the bow tie for us though, mate, I'm sure.
I took off clothes for you. I think that's a good thing, isn't it?
Dr. Kath, come on in.
I think Matilda might like that.
I echo what Ben is saying. It's really, what are we focusing on? And this is something that I do with my clients as well. Like, if you look at this piece of paper, what do you see? You see a black dot, right? But the fact of the matter is, there's a whole bunch of other white, beautiful space out there. And if we continue to focus on the negatives, we'll continue to be divided in how we approach life, politics, healthcare, everything under the sun. So one of my favorite quotes is by researcher Dr. Brene Brown, and she says, people are hard to hate close up, so move in. So my suggestion is, how can you approach rather than avoid, to learn more about individuals? And I'm that person in an Uber who's saying, so tell me about yourself. And, when did you start driving? And tell me, what was your childhood like? And a bit of a story behind this, I recently went to the United Nations anniversary, and I got into the dress. I thought to, go subtle, so I wore head to toe sequins. So I was like in the Uber, and it was like this disco ball. Very long story short, it brought up the conversation, and the driver said, listen, I wouldn't be here without the United Nations. And the fact of the matter is, the more you speak and really, really get to know people, the more you see there's more than one side of the coin, which makes the world such a more beautiful place, I believe.
What was
It's
that?
funny, Kath. I'm also that person.
What was
Same.
that quote you offered us? What was that? There's no hate close up. What was it? Something along those lines.
Brene Brown.
Strangers are hard to hate close up, so move in. So my thing is kind of like a chess game. How do you approach rather than avoid?
I
So,
like
for
that.
example, whenever I get negative feedback, my first inclination is to ask the person, tell me more about that. Why don't you like me? You know, blah,
I
blah,
like
blah,
it.
blah.
Final word
Yeah.
on this one. Bid.
Oh, look, everybody else has said it so very well, and I'm the grumpy old man in this conversation. I want to be positive about one thing. Look, we all survived those fashions. I have two older sisters. They survived teddy boys, bodgies and widgies, which were exported from overseas. I survived the great folk scare of the 1960s and all the clothes and hippie stuff that went with it, and acid flashes thereafter.
The folks
bell-bottom.
scare.
Great
You
folk
call it
scare
the
of
folks scare.
I do. I call it the great. Well, if you listen to the lyrics, yes, it was the great. We avoided it narrowly. Then there were the horrendous big band. Am I allowed to say cock rock? Can you edit that out?
Yes, you can say anything you like.
Big stadium bands of the 80s and the big hair.
Or to bring,
we
or to
survived.
bring
punks and
big
we-
smile to some of the participants' faces tonight on the panel. So,
my point is that if we survived punk and all of the aforementioned, we are going to survive Kanye with his pants down. You know, so and others. I'm not blaming President-elect Kanye West. So the only thing I would disagree with is I think Trumpism could and inevitably might happen here. We've had leaders who have aspects, hear me out, who have aspects of Trumpism. People who tried to convince us that they weren't conviction politicians, that they were conviction politicians rather than party political people, and who vastly disappointed us. People like Latham, Rudd, Turnbull, for example, all did that to a vastly smaller degree than Trump, but the potential exists here. And Matilda, please don't worry about, young people are smart. They will see through the current American experience. And sadly, America is in decline. We're watching the fall of Rome right now. And I don't mean just Trump. On television right now in real time. It's been happening since the 80s, the greatest good model. America has been in decline. And young people will figure that out. All of the inequalities are coming home to roost. It's all about inequality in America, and that's just not improving. All of the issues that the tired old man they've just elected king has to face are really all about inequality. So education is about inequality. Racism is about inequality. Health is about inequality. The economy is fundamentally about inequality. Some people estimate that something like 90% of the wealth is in 1.5% of the hands. This is not sustainable. Young people know this and see this, and they will vote to avoid these sort of stereotypes. Sorry to be the sad sack, but that's my take.
speaking of young people, Travis, can you tell us our viewing public to answer this week for us on our social media question?
Mitch, we want we wanted to know, Australia has been consuming American culture since the end of World War II. Do you believe Australia will see the rise of a Trump figure?
And the
And 25% said yes, 75% said no.
75% of hopeful that we'll avoid it.
Hmm.
Doesn't necessarily mean we will, though.
No.
We'll see. I learned a lot out of that one.
Don't have it
That was
already.
good chat. Thank you, everyone. Most people positive. Letter number 2 coming to us from Greenwood in WA. Kevin writes to us, "Dear Mitch, without pointing fingers at certain groups, there's a whole lot of rorting going on of the Australian public purse. I live next door to a family who live courtesy of the taxpayer. There's a lot of kids, and that's fine, but in the 6 years that they've lived next door, 2 more kids have arrived. The worst of this is that the father of this lot is only part-time. And get this, he divides his time between another family he has that also lives courtesy of the taxpayer. It's a good country for some. How do we get this changed? Because we've made it too easy for everyone to rip me and you off. Why is this permitted? And what values are the children in this situation learning?" as I said, Kevin of Greenwood in WA. I want to know how he knows any of that. Even if they live next door, how the hell do you know that? It's just you sitting there being a busybody going, oh, I bet you that, or Floss from that house has said, you know what, they're all on the pension. You can't know that. You can't know anybody's situation that intimately. But anyway, we will see. Bid, what have you got to say about this one, too?
Look, I had to say, I found it hysterical that the name of the letter is It's Not On, because many years ago, the federal government had a competition, a public health campaign, a safe sex campaign for a slogan for condoms. And the winner was, if it's not on, it's not on, which I thought was very funny because it talks about children. Incidentally, the public voted for the much less prosaic, if you're not prepared to sack it, take it out and whack it, which I think is sorry, Travis. But having said that, all of those things.
Hang on, we voted for that one, did we? The public
yeah, we voted for that one. Don't you love letters that start out with, without pointing fingers at, and then point fingers at? I mean, what is he alleging that? I mean, are they black? Are they from Mars? God knows that. You know, God forbid, are they lesbians or vegans or
certainly see his mindset here.
Yeah. Look, you said it all, and I said far too much in the last answer, so I'll shut up. But basically, stay in your own lane. You know, if you want to do something about, if you think they're doll bludgers or whatever you think they are, for God's sake, do something about it. You know, handballing it to us doesn't do anything. You know, write to your representative or do something about it. But basically, stay in your lane. Are they doing you any harm? Are they doing anyone any harm?
Well, he probably thinks everybody's doing him harm. Dr. Kath, is this actually happening in this country?
I think far more than we're aware of. And I think it just goes back to what we spoke about before, is that we're so easy to judge others. And then when it comes to our crap, we're the best of lawyers. We can talk ourselves and, oh, it's because of this and this and this and this. And fact is, this is such a complex problem. It's equivalent to saying, okay, we can solve homelessness by giving everyone a home. If it was that simple, we wouldn't have that as a problem. Mental health is just one aspect of this problem. You don't know what the family is going through. You don't know if there's domestic violence. You don't know if the children are being abused. How a person can stand on his high horse and point fingers like this in 2020, when we're seeing this amount of crap going around the world, is absolutely beyond me. We have to judge less and love more is my take on this.
Yeah, good take. Benny, what's your take on this?
Mic drop. There we go.
Yeah, I think that everyone's sort of saying very similar things here, and that is that this person needs to look inside, look at themselves, really. I mean, when you find people that are freely talking about their neighbors, I've found in my very short lifetime that it's more about them and less about the other. And so I would say that this person's issue is probably more with their own failures, probably, and then it makes them feel better to point at the neighbor and say, you know, look, they're doing it and and it's unfair. Do you know what I mean? And this is a huge problem with people these days, is wanting to be the person to rescue the other person, wanting to be the person who will fix the other person when they need to think about themselves. Like, and when it comes to this sort of stuff, if they're upset with their government, you know, elections are there, and you know, read the policy, people, work out what you're voting for. And if you've got an issue with the way in which government is funding people in welfare or whatever, they're the people you take it up with.
I think that's right. I noticed that I get really niggly with my retail neighbours, and I go out the front and complain that they're taking up all my parking spots only when I'm not busy.
You know, I want to make myself really accountable about something here, and it's a good example as well to make, and that is that at times when I'm the most unhappiest about myself, I'm on the blower, I'm on the phone, gossiping about my mates, you know, oh, have you heard what's happening with Tracy, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, I think we have to be accountable for our own mistake, and you see that repetitive behavior within yourself. you know.
Mencken said we're never too busy for the misfortunes of others, and that's so true.
Yeah. Tracy's having a terrible time right now. I can't even begin to tell you.
Last word, Suzie.
Well, I think that Kevin displays all the traits of Australians that I really dislike. And I think that I agree with what everyone has said. I feel that he is the sort of, I mean, I think it's 65%. I read something recently, 50 or 6, over 50% of couples are actually separated. I mean, I'm separated, we're in a blended family, there's other family. You know, that's the way things are now. I mean, if at least I would say that the father is attending to that family and going to another family. I mean, there's something to take from it, but it's up to Kevin to go, if they don't have a job, and how does he know he doesn't have a job? Is he watching him 24/7? But it's up to Kevin to go and say, hey, can I help you out, mate? You're obviously doing it tough. And there's no sense of empathy. And what I really dislike about the rhetoric that we're getting from our politicians that are leading us now, federally, is there's this lack of empathy and thought into what is happening to people. And I look at that whole, you know, Trumpism and going back to the first letter, there's lack of empathy. And this sort of letter and this rhetoric reminds me of the worst of what we are. And I think we're better than this. I think we can do better. And I think as a community, we're better. And I just find Kevin's letter from WA to be incredibly disappointing.
Disappointing. Yeah, we should have
It
taken the
is still
piss out of him
reflective,
more.
though.
Disappointing is probably not the right word.
But I guess
No.
we're all saying this. We're all saying this, by the way. But it's still very, you know, it's very accurate. This person exists. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're all sitting here going,
I know.
and I think that's another misfortune that we're making at the moment is just saying that, oh, that person's wrong and we need more empathy and all the rest of it. I mean, these people exist, so we need to understand them a little bit as well and hear them and then re-educate them. Oh, that even sounds condescending, guys, doesn't it? You know?
Well, Ben, I can just say in response to that, I totally understand and I agree with you. We do need to educate them. I think I've been doing this show, Gary, this coming up to 17 years. And, you know, I sort of have noticed over the years that the letters have changed. This letter reminds me of something sort of 12 years ago or 15 years ago. And I just wonder whether the public conversation is going back to what it was when I thought we'd move forward. But I agree, he's a person who Kevin needs to be listened to.
Grab us where you and let's know what question we ask our public to respond to.
Mitch, we wanted to know, is it acceptable in this modern age that Australian society tolerate bigamy supported by social security benefits?
Oh.
And 8% said yes, 92% said no.
Okay. So our values suggest that Australians don't have bigamy. But if we accept people into this nation and we're asking them to come in or we're taking them on a refugee basis, and they are already living in that sort of lifestyle because of their culture, we can't really point fingers at them. We're asking them to come here because we want them here, and we've got to grow our tolerance a little, I think.
Yeah, I think we do.
Anyway, here we go. And if you would like to send us a letter, send it to one of these 6 social media points that are appearing on your screen right now.
Connect with Sweet and Sour online. Head to our official website, sweetandsour.net.au, to catch up on past episodes. And while you're there, why not send us a letter? Plus, don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram. And make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to our YouTube channel.
Here we go, final letter of the evening. Benny, you're first up with this one. You're on notice, sir, and it's titled Surprise. Hello, Sweet and Sour. Well, I never expected any of this. I'm sure no one did. The kids moved back home at the start of COVID. It looked like COVID-6. It's at the start of COVID. Full stop. 6 months later, they're still here. That's the kids. And they can't really go anywhere either. They both lost their jobs when the hospitality entertainment industry closed down and still haven't the means to change things yet. My wife, who's been working from home since the pandemic hit, only clocks half the hours that she did prior. So with reduced income, yet more mouths again, I'm now in an economic stalemate going nowhere, but thankfully not backwards either at this stage. Is this the new norm? I'm well aware that the world economy didn't recover from the Great Depression until the post-war 50s saw the advent of new technologies that revolutionised the Western way of life. I don't know what I should be encouraging my kids to think. On one hand, I've seen more of and chatted more with my two kids than at any other time, and it feels like we're a family again. On the other hand, I worry for their long-term economic well-being. How do the panelists view the future of our kids? And it comes to us from Malcolm of Glebe in Victoria. Glebe, come a place near you, Benny.
Yeah, and look, this is a real pandemic that we're coming out of, and I think that it's going to take us a bit of time to come out of it as well. I think that this person's, like a lot of people, I mean, I don't have children, but I think a lot of parents care for their kids and they want to do the right thing by them. But my auntie once said to me, she was like, I was there as a house guest and I was younger, so I stayed there for too long. And she was like, and then when I came to stay the next time, she was like, look, you can only stay for 2 nights, because the thing about a guest coming to your house is, you know, you can allow them to stay there and make it so lovely, because it's in our nature to be there for our children and nest them and look after them and feed them and all the rest of it. But you're probably doing the wrong thing by them. And there are ways of still making money through difficult times. And that's the thing that you should be asking your children to do, is to look outside of the box. And, you know, some people who have pivoted during COVID have pivoted because they had to survive. And raising children to be survivors, I think, is really important, and asking your children to look outside of the circle as well, but never stopping doing the one thing that you can do as a parent, and that is to listen to them. But, you know, pushing them into this world and still being there. And my mum probably has heard me say all kinds of things about horrible situations I've got myself into. And while she hasn't been there to afford the solution, she certainly was always there to listen to it. And I think that's made me, I think that's really, yeah, that's the way to say it. It's made me. So I think that's what parents should do.
Suzie, mum to 4 kids.
Well, I think I actually asked some of my junior staff who are young, because they were in the office when I got the letter, and I think that they are worried about certain things. I have great faith in my children. We have everyone at home. They're all at uni. One's just finished to do medicine, so he's leaving. But look, the thing about COVID, unfortunately, when we did have the short lockdown here, I thought it was wonderful. We had everyone together, and it was really like, I knew that this would be the last time we'd have everyone together. So I really made the most of that, I have to say. Like, I really thought I was going to work, but I was coming home and going, wow, they're all really cool. They've all had jobs. They've mostly got jobs now while they're studying. I think speaking to young people what they care about, and this is why they've invested time into the election, the American election, they care about climate change. You know, they care about debt. They care about what's happening in the future, and they care about the environment. And I really have great faith in them. What I want to do as a parent, and as a step parent, and as a principal of a practice that employs young people, is I want to try and do my bit while I can. And I think that's to me the most important thing. But I really feel that our future, this country's future, is in great hands with the young people that are there now. They actually do care. And sometimes you wouldn't know that. And I think that COVID has brought out that, you know, the election has brought out, oh, right, you really care about that. You care about what happens in politics here, you know. And now they've started questioning our own politicians. They're going to be better when they're electing. They're going to think about what they're doing.
Ben,
So
come on in, sir.
I just wanted to draw your attention to something that I think is the most important thing in the whole letter. You say that on one hand, I've seen more of and chatted more with my 2 kids than at any time, and it feels like we're family again. So I wanted to echo what Suzie said. The other thing is, just really quickly, bear with me. I'm an actor, and one of the things we do when we get a script and a character, to try and add life to that character, is to flip the assumptions we have on the page about that character. creates richer characters. And what I've found in life is that it does the same thing. So just bear with me. Let me do that just for a couple of these parts. So the kids moved back home at the start of COVID, painting that as a negative. But there's two things in that. You have a relationship that's so good with your kids, they felt that they could move back in. And you have a home for them to come to. So flip it to that. 6 months later, they're still there. Well, good. Well, good. It means that the relationship is solid, that you're nurturing them. They really can't go anywhere either. Well, fine. They both lost their jobs. Well, that means they had jobs in the hospitality and entertainment industry. Okay, those jobs will come back, or jobs will come back. My wife has been working from home since the pandemic. Yeah, well, good. She only clocks half the hours, but she is working. Every assumption you make in here as a negative is actually a positive about the nurturing environment you're able to provide in a home. And what better example for your kids than the fact that you prepared, not for this eventuality, but because of what you prepared, they have this nurturing environment to go back to. So almost every negative assumption in your letter can be flipped. That's what I would urge you to do.
Oh, final words, Dr. Kat. That's why we have him on the show. That's why we have all of you on the show.
I'll end with a quote, I think. There's, I'm not sure if anyone's read A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He was a psychiatrist during the Holocaust, and essentially he summarized his experience by saying, between the stimulus and the response, there is a space, and in this space lies your freedom. Meaning, sort of echoing what Kym was saying, everything that happens, there's a little delay, and within that delay, you can change your perspective and turn a negative into a positive. So there we go.
Turn a negative into a positive.
Pardon.
For the final time tonight, Travis.
Yep.
What did we ask our viewers on this one?
Your second question for this one was, have families become closer since COVID-19 hit the world? And 83% said yes, 17% said no.
Yeah. 17% don't have families, maybe. Goodness me, don't know. Thank you,
dysfunctional families.
Or dysfunctional families, but the overwhelming majority of people have said, yep, everybody's a lot closer. Thank you for being with us tonight, panelists. Thank you, Trav. How did you enjoy your first experience on our show, Benny?
I loved it. I mean, I was hoping for a little bit more conflict for some reason, I think sometimes. Well, no, conflict can be. Do you know what? These days, people tell you not to have conflict, and it's so funny because I mean, I do a daytime show, a digital show like this called the Robbo Show, and people tune in, and it's not always. We don't always get along, but we fundamentally love working together, and I think that's really important. Is to not to see conflict as a negative, but to embrace that sort of diverse opinion and find the reasons as to why people think differently to you. And I think that's really powerful. And I've just loved listening to the diverse people that you have on this show, that whilst we all basically agreed this episode, everyone offered some really unique perspectives, which I thought were great.
We always make some inroads for progress, I think. I'd like to think anyway. Thank you for being with us, Bid. What's the weather like in Esperance just before we go?
Perfect, but don't tell anyone because it gets very crowded in summer. Just beautiful.
All right, say hello to your beautiful wife too. Suzie Hunt, back to your 4 kids and a huge architecture practice. Thank you.
No, going back to work actually.
Oh, okay.
I'm at home for a minute.
Dr. Kat, always terrific to see you in your fantastic room.
Thank you very much. I try to make people happy with the colors.
All right, terrific to have you all. Thank you, Travis, for delivering on all the little notes that we asked our viewers. And we will see our viewing public next week. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is where you wave, Benny. All right, good night, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night.
It's time for Sweet and Sour. Right here on Sweet and Sour.
Pour some sugar on there, baby.
It's time for Sweet and Sour.
How's about some chili?
It's time for Sweet